3.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Thomas Haslett on November 3, 2023. I'm with the Nebraska Veterans Memorial Foundation Share Your Story Project. Bellevue University is a sponsor of the NVVMF Memorial Park Project, and I am at Bellevue University Military Veterans Center with veteran Denny Achesen,
Achesen, yes.
who has agreed to share his story for the Library of Congress Veterans History Project in the Nebraska Vietnam Memorial Park Project. Denny, let's begin with your full name.
My given name, all family names, Denzel Kleiber Achesen. Where in the world my grandparents got Denzel from, I don't know, because my father's side of the family is all Irish. So I can trace my dad's middle name and my great uncle's middle name. But I got the family Bible and I can't find any Denzels in there. Kleiber is my mother's maiden name. My dad thought it was a good deal to carry on that on my mother's side, but since I don't have any sons, that's going to stop with me.
How many children in your family?
Well, I have 2 daughters, my wife and I. Marisa Jean is our oldest one, and Melissa Joyce is the youngest one.
Okay. How about what were your parents' occupation? What did they do for a living?
Well, my dad basically worked for Alcoa, Aluminum Company of America, in Lafayette. He actually worked construction in 1940 on the plant, and then later got hired to work in the extrusion department. And he was there until worked there until 1977 when he retired from there. And then he had a sideline of hauling dirt and gravel, building driveways and that sort of thing. My mother was a housewife and stay-at-home mom.
And how about your brothers and sisters?
I have 2 sisters, both of them younger than me. The oldest one is a widow. She lives in Lakeland, Florida. My baby sister, who was a surprise, she's 17 years younger than I am. She and her husband live in Brookston area, Indiana. Now, she had a son, Luke, who died of wounds in Iraq in 2020. No, I'm sorry, 20. Let me stop and think what it is. It's 20 years ago. So 2004. He would have been 21 had he lived. Yeah.
Let's tell me about your schooling, your upbringing through school, college.
Well, I can do that. Basically, we lived in Lafayette, West Lafayette, until my dad and mom bought 7 acres out north of Lafayette. And I remember a cold January day, 1947, driving out there in our brand new Willys Jeep, or surplus, painted red, with a canvas cover. And I didn't know where we were going. We went out on the highway, turned left down this gravel road, and we drove a little bit and then turned around and stopped the Jeep. And then Dad says, "Okay, kids," my baby sister was sitting in my mother's lap. So "This is it." And I'm looking at, "What is this?" I said, "Okay, what am I looking at?" He said, "This is your new home." Well, guys, I tell you what, we were about 3-foot road to the edge of the property, and that's all the further you could see. For all the weeds, the grapevines, second growth timber. So I was 7 years old, going on 8. For my 8th birthday, I got an axe. And I used that axe for about 2 years till I lost the head. And my dad said I'd fix that. He gave me one of his 2 regular size axe. But my dad and I worked for 4 years clearing the place off. We cut down oak trees to build a bridge across the creek. We built a driveway that's about in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 foot long, uphill. And so I learned the value of hard work from that.
Really? Did you build the house?
Oh yeah, we built a house that would go in 1950, and the expectation was we would move in And my sister and I would then start school in Battleground High School. That was battlefield of Battle of Tippecanoe back in 1811, I believe it was. Anyway, so finished up grade school, junior high and high school there. Graduated in 1957. Now, from the time I was about 9 years old, my mom and dad told me I was going to go to college. And my mother didn't ever tell me what I was going to take as far as a major, but my dad wanted me to be an engineer because he knew the engineers at the Alcoa made good money. Well, long story short, I went to a small country school. We didn't have any labs, physics or chem, and math was a little shaky. So after the first semester, I told them I had a choice. Either let me switch majors or let me go in the Army. Of course, letting go in the Army was not an option in their book. So I switched to education at the advice of my high school principal with the expectation, social studies coach and basketball coach. Well, back in that day, all land-grant colleges required that able-bodied males had to take 2 years of reserve officer training. So I wanted to go in the Navy, but I didn't know that the Navy only took 200 midshipmen a year, and by the time I applied, they'd already filled their quota. So that only left me with the Army and the Air Force. Well, if you think back to what color the Army had back in those days, it was pretty ugly green. So I really liked blue. So basically, I chose 2 years of Air Force ROTC just based on the color of the uniform. And besides that, I liked airplanes. Back during World War II, Kellogg's produced a cereal called Pep. And on the cereal box, they used to have models of airplanes. And once you emptied the box, you could cut the airplanes out and they glided. And so I ate a lot of Pep cereal. And then I had a ride a few years later in the backseat of a Piper Cub, which I thought was really neat stuff. And I built other wooden model airplanes during that time. So anyway, my sophomore year, the instructor came in and said, okay, next Saturday, for those of you who want to go into advanced ROTC, the next Saturday we're giving this test, Air Force Officer Qualification Exam, 1 o'clock, 2 hours for those who want to be. Well, in 8 semesters of college, I had 8 Saturdays of classes. So that was it. So I told my mom and dad I'm not going to be home right away. I'm going to take this test. Well, they're used to me coming home and telling them I have a test. So I took it, and not knowing what. It came back that I qualified for a number of things: admin officer, navigator, pilot, and might have been one other. Maintenance. So pilot, the thing caught my eye. Anyway, so I applied for advanced ROTC. One of the hooks in application, if you made it, you got paid 90 cents a day. And so every 90 days, I got a check for $81. Now, my dad was paying me $5 a week to farm. I took over a 200-acre farm when I was 16. It was either that or sell my 4-H cattle, which I didn't want to do, and because my dad was tired of paying the feed bills. Anyway, so that $81, I thought I was king. So anyway, that 2 years went by, stayed healthy enough to qualify for pilot training, and so 3 October came, and I walked in the door at Craig Air Force Base in Selma, Alabama, and I started my Air Force career there, pilot training.
What did you fly?
Well, initially in pilot training were T-37s and T-33s. We were told when we walked in the first day that we were to be the first class to get T-38s. Well, that was another misstatement. We flew T-33s. Anyway, and that was 55 weeks. So anyway, when the time came at the end of training, we had a laundry list of airplanes, and it was by academic rank who got to pick first. Well, I partied a lot, so I was down towards the lower third. So anyway, I had a chance to go to C-130s at Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas. And so we graduated, got our wings on the 19th of October. For those who are old enough to remember, on the 22nd, a Monday after evening, President Kennedy got on national TV and told about missiles in Cuba. So So now we got the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I was working at base ops on the flight line, and I walked back to the office I was working with, and the captain that I worked for, phone rang. He picked it up the phone and said, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. That's why I'm writing some things down. He said, yes sir. Okay, and then he turns to me and says, are you married? Oh, I thought that was kind of a personal question. I said, no, I'm a bachelor. He said, live in town? No, I said, I'm in BOQ. He says, well, you go change your clothes, get your flight suit on, and bring your flight gear down here. I said, what are we going to do? He says, they're refueling 2 T-33s out here, and we're on alert. Well, here I am, a brand new, wet behind the ears pilot, second lieutenant person, and now I'm on alert. What am I on alert for? Well, if we have to, we're going to go fly down the Gulf tonight and look for Cubans invading Key West. All the way back to the BOQ, which wasn't all that far away. All I can think is, I'm too young for this. But I went back, got back there as quick as I could, and we're sitting around there, and all I'm thinking is, this is really dumber than dirt. Fortunately, the phone rang and said we were off the hook. Oh. But that wasn't the last of the humorous part of that week. On Tuesday, I went back to the queue at noon. I'm not sure. Well, I went back to get my laundry. That's what it was. Anyway, there's a note on the board that said call operator 27 in Lafayette. So I did, and it turned out to be my neighbor lady, and she'd picking up the mail from my mom and dad who'd come down for graduation and who continued on to Florida. I said, well, we'll open it up and see what it says. It says, your orders are canceled. Report to Dyess Air Force Base immediately. Oh, okay. Not surprised, but that's pretty. So I said, what do you want me to do? I said, well, you fold it up and mail it down to your air mail, because I got to have something to take to personnel to get my orders changed. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday, I go, same thing, get there about noon. Another note, call operator 29 in Lafayette. So I did. My sister answered, and well, I got another letter from Dyess. What does it say? Oh, disregard first letter. Continue with original orders. Okay, well, I can handle that. So Thursday, about noon, again, stop by, another note, call another operator long distance in Lafayette, which I did, and another letter from Dyess says, disregard first 2 letters, report immediately. So I had refereed basketball while I was going to pilot training. So one of the fellows I refereed with that had to be a major chief of personnel. So I went over to see him, and I showed him my letter, because I had finally got the first letter. And I said, okay, what you guys do your magic. Well, he didn't know what to do. Well, thinking back years later, well, what I should have done, pick up the phone, call Dyess and say, what's the deal here, boys? And get something more official than a message form, canceling my orders. So anyway, that all got taken care of. Friday, my mom and dad stopped by because it got cold in Florida and they were headed back to Indiana. So I got to spend Friday night, and then I left on Saturday and showed up on Monday. And every place I went in processes, there was always this frown, dirty look. Why are you here? Why are you reporting early? I said, well, here. Oh, well, okay. And another dumb second lieutenant. Finally, about halfway through this drill, I'm standing in the hallway in line with a lot of other folks, and this staff sergeant comes walking by, and he gets about 2 steps by me, and all of a sudden you get here and put the brakes on. He turns around and says, Lieutenant Achesen, how you doing? I'm Sergeant so-and-so. Did you got my message? I said, yeah, but these guys didn't get it. So anyway, he was kind enough to take me by the hand and finish my own process, and then I wound up in 17. Now the 17th Troop Carrier Squadron back in those days was very unique. Not only did we fly C-130As, which were assigned to the wing, we also had 12 skied C-130s with skis on because we supported 2 radar sites on the Greenland ice cap. So we'd go to Sandstrom, Greenland on the west coast for about 18 days at a time. That was the nominal tour. The airplanes seemed to sense when they were going to Greenland because they'd break. And it was not uncommon for the rotator not to get airborne as scheduled on a Monday or a Thursday. But I did that and it was a lot of fun. Of course, in our handbook, our flight handbook, is right in the emergency section, it says, snow operations are inherently dangerous. Okay, well, they didn't lie to me about that.
Was there any close calls?
I'm trying to think of, I don't want to take up time thinking too much about it, because the operation ran from late 50s to 75, and we had 2 crashes. One of them was, first one was taken off and lost an engine just as it rotated. Crew did a good job. They later let's put it back on the snow, and I just wanted to change the engine, no problem, no big deal. Let's see, I was in Tucson when this happened. 68, the crew took off. Normally when we were at Die 3, which is 210 miles southeast of Sonnenstrom, we'd take off, we'd get about 100 feet off the snow and just stay there and fly across the ridge and head towards westbound towards Sonnenstrom. Well, for some reason, the aircraft commander decided to climb up to about 9,000 feet above the snow. Thank goodness, because number 3 prop came off, crawled across the top of the fuselage, took out number 2 and number 1 engine. So he's operating with the 4th engine full power. Anecdotally, the people I talked to said he made about 2 360 turns, straightened it out to land on the snow. Now you think, well, that's it with that plane. Well, they brought 3 engines and 3 props out, and they changed them all right there on the snow at about 8,000 foot elevation, flew the airplane back. Now the first airplane, when they landed on that, they busted up the nose gear. So what they did was come jack that up and welded it down. The crew flew it back to Marietta, Georgia, and they fixed it, replaced the nose gear. So a tough airplane. Damn, it was tough duty. So as far as I know, there was only one person that got killed on an ice cap, and that was an offload accident. 1967, we were carrying 40-foot I-beams that weighed about 10,000 pounds out to the ice cap to jack the stations up. Because snow, we found out that snow grows, ice cap grew 3 foot a year and moved about 3 foot a year. So what they were doing is jacking it up above snow. I went down and looked at it. Like I said, these are 10,000 pound I-beams, and we were carrying 4 at a time in the back. And anyway, it looked like spaghetti. They just twisted, the snow had twisted them. Anyway, we were offloading 4 of them onto the snowcat sled, and one of the civilian worker bees out there noticed that the tow skid I would put over the ramp and the sled had slipped, so he was going to reposition it. We didn't see it, and the load fell on top of him and killed him. So that was kind of shaky, but that was the only accident we had out of there in all those years, so that was pretty good.
Where did you go next in your career?
Well, I spent, well, I guess I should back up. 1964, I met my wife and married her there in Abilene, and as a wedding present, I took her to Alaska. She was in graduate school at Hardin-Simmons University, and she had the good sense to date my roommate, and who brought her by the house, and then he went to Europe, and I didn't have a date one night, so I called her up, and next thing you know, 9 months later, we're getting married. So anyway, the squadron moved from Dyess to Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska in 1964. So I stayed there, we stayed there for 3 years till 1967 and came back to Tucson. During that time in July, I got a call. I always seem to get a call on Wednesday night. I wanted to know if I wanted to go on a classified mission. Well, I'm a sucker for classified. So I said, sure. So I said, show up at the base there next morning at 10 o'clock in flight suit. Okay. So I get down there, and something very unusual was going on, because the base theater was surrounded by security police. I mean, they were armed, helmet and all this. Boy, oh boy, this is a big deal. And they even had an entry access list, which I know you gentlemen are familiar with. So I had to show my ID, and I don't know, answer a couple questions, and repeat my social security number. Finally, I walked in. There was equivalent of 2 crews: 4 pilots, 2 navigators, 2 engineers, 2 load masters, and a couple of crew chiefs. And we were it. We were the group, the operating group that's going to go on this classified mission. So we went in there, and it turned out the people who were briefing didn't know a heck of a lot more than we did. And we're the ones getting briefed. Didn't think too much about it until a personnel guy got up and said, okay, for those of you who don't have a will, see me over here and we'll fill one out. I thought, oh, this is serious. So the deal was we had Thursday, all the rest of Thursday and Friday to process. We had to go shoot the M16, which was a new weapon for us, and among other things, get a series of shots. Most of them you recognize, yellow fever and typhoid and all that stuff. But there was another new one in there for all of us, gamma G, gamma globulin. Now normally you take it today and then 2 weeks later you go back and take the second shot. Well, we're going to get 12 hours between shots. Fortunately, only one guy got sick and he got well by Monday. So we were supposed to leave on Monday and go to Shemya to refuel and then go on down to Tachikawa where we'd be further inbriefed what we're going to do. Well, Monday came and of course we had a kind of a tough weekend getting by because obviously Baby Doll didn't want me to go to war. I told her that's what I'm getting paid for and I'm going to do it. So we talked about what your plans, you know, if worst come to worst, what she could do or should do. So I left. So anyway, get up and go down to Monday, get ready to leave, and we can't go because of fog in Shemya, which is at the next to last island in the Aleutians. And so anyway, we left Tuesday. We get out there and refuel. The other crew flew down to Tachikawa. We landed. So we landed in the morning and somebody was there to meet us, surprisingly enough. Anyway, so we were taken over to the 314th Air Division to be briefed. Well, it turned out we were going to go to Chingchangquan Air Base there on Taiwan. And our job was to fly parts and people from Taipei into Tuiwa, Vietnam, and they were going to build an air base there. Now it's 1966. For those who followed the history, this is part of the big buildup in Vietnam, starting in '65. Well, in 1948, a little history here. In 1948, when the Air Force became separate, there was a meeting in Key West, Florida, Army, Navy, and Air Force, and it was decided the Air Force would not be granted heavy equipment civil engineering. Navy, Army would take care of it. And if you ever look at it, the Army Corps of Engineers had responsibility for all of the United States, Canada, and Mexico, South America, over eastward to Europe. Westward, from Pearl Harbor on, the Navy, CB, construction battalions, had responsibility. Well, we needed a bunch of air bases in Vietnam. Phuket was one of them, Cam Ranh Bay was another, the third one in there, but I can't remember the name. So the Navy was tied up. They didn't have any excess help to build the Tuiwa. So the Air Force was given their only time that they were given responsibility for a major construction outfit. So we were part of the helper bees, if you will. So we would get up our 2 crews, so we flew every other day, and we'd fly from CCK about 45 minutes up to Taipei, and we'd land, we'd pick up whatever it was our load was, and then fly into Tuiwa, which was about 4.5 hour flight, depending on wind. And then we'd go somewhere, refuel, and go back to CCK. A very interesting mission. We had a lot of fun. We were only supposed to be there 30 days. Well, we saw, well, this place is not going to last 30 days, it'll be longer. So we volunteered to continue, which we did, and so they wanted to know if we wanted to volunteer some more. The construction people wanted to know if we wanted to. We said, sure, we'll do that. Well, anyway, the squadron commander back in Elmendorf there in Anchorage decided we were having too much fun. So we sent 2 more crews down, and rightfully so, to get a little more experience. Well, coming back in the middle of October, I was all gung-ho to get back down there in the war. So I volunteered for 7 different airplanes. They either dropped a bomb or had a gun or both. And we had friends from church that were Army helicopter pilots right next door at Fort Richardson. And not uncommon for one of them to go to work on Monday morning, and on his desk would be PCS orders to Vietnam, and they'd be gone by Friday. So I told my bride that this is what I'd done. She wasn't happy about that one either. So anyway, that was in October. So we're getting into December, and I'm not hearing anything, which I thought was kind of unusual with the big buildup. So I called personnel down in Randolph and told them who it was and what I'd done. They said, well, we got your, he says, the guy answered the phone says, oh, I got your volunteer request, but Sorry to tell you, we already got all the training cycles for next fiscal year all filled up, so we have no room for you. Oh, okay, what do you guys do to him? Oh, we sent you to the C-130 guy. Well, what's his number? So I called him up and said, here I am, what are you going to do with me? Oh, I think we're going to send you to the Philippines. I said, well, do what? Well, fly B models, C-130Bs. I said, wait a minute, I'm an A model qualified guy, a D model qualified guy, and now I got to go back to school and get qualified in a B? Well, yeah. I said, I don't think so. I said, what about this recon outfit in Tucson? Oh, you know about that. It was supposedly be a top secret, don't tell anybody, but another co-pilot in a squadron, a friend of mine from Indiana, knew about it. Tom was the one that's telling me about it. So I said, well, how about sending me to that? And I said, I don't have to go to 130 school again. I said, oh, okay. So then we got assigned to Davis Monthan, Tucson, Arizona, 100 Strat Recon Wing, the 350th SRS, another specialized flying unit. We had C-130s that launched drones over Vietnam. We had helicopters that captured the drones when they came back to Da Nang. And then we had a part of our unit were ground recovery control officers that would be TDY to Da Nang to control the airplane to get it back where the helicopters could snag it out of the air. Okay, no big deal there. Well, that was, I got checked out in the A model, okay, but then they decided I had to go get checked out in the E model. Well, crap, I didn't want to do that. In the meantime, we found out we were going to be parents. So I took her back with me to Tennessee, and then she went up to Indiana to stay with my folks for a while. So basically, we left in January to go back to Tucson, and stopped road in Texas to visit her folks in the Panhandle. So it's another Wednesday night telephone call. Hey, need you to go TDY again. Well, okay, what am I going to do? Can't tell you. Where am I going? Can't tell you. Well, okay, what kind of clothes should I have? Well, a little warm and a little cold. Well, that's very helpful. And I got to thinking, well, they just had a B-52 dump a couple of weapons into North Star Bay at Thule. Okay, SAC smart wisdom, we got C-130s cargo type, we'll send them up there to help with recovery of these bombs. So I'm thinking that's what it is. So I had to show up at 6 o'clock next morning, pack for 30 days or 60 days. And well, I'm not going to Thule, I'm going to Vietnam, to the OL at Ben Hoa Air Base, which is about 20 some miles north of Saigon. So what are we going to do there? Well, the previous November, obviously, the Pueblo got snatched, and they didn't know where the Pueblo was. They knew it was Wonsan Harbor, but they wanted to know where was it in relation. So our job was to go launch a big wing drone over Wonsan Harbor. They'd pre-positioned ground recovery guys and ground radar and the helicopters there in Osan, and of course Osan, Korea is known as the land of the cold sun or whatever. And so we're going up there. Well, the long story short, we landed, and I meant to look this up, but I'm pretty sure it was Saturday the 27th of January, about 4 o'clock in the morning. 12:30 that night is when the Viet Cong opened up tent. So I got to be there. Not only did I get to be there, I also got a chance to collect a little shrapnel from either the 122 or 81 millimeter mortar thing. And of course, they're trying to catch my bride to tell her that I'm okay. Unfortunately,
Can you describe that day in a sense of what was it like?
oh yeah, it was interesting from the standpoint. I hadn't been in country at night. My previous experience in 1966 had been all daylight operation. And about the only excitement was at nighttime, the Viet Cong would try to blow up Highway 1, and then the engineers would have to go back and fix it during the day. So that got to be a little, but landing at 4 o'clock in the morning, there's flares all around. They're having, a little firefight on the perimeter and stuff. Though I felt pretty secure that we had enough people shooting guns to keep the bad guys out. So anyway, you know, that was the other thing about this deal. When we left Tucson on Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, crew duty had been waived. In other words, it had been for the flyers, once you get 16 hours, you're supposed to land and get 12 hours of rest or whatever. Well, they augmented us with 3 pilots, 2 navs, and told us to go direct, do not pass, go get over to Benoit as fast as you can.
Unknown caller.
Anyway,
Pull your jacket down.
no, it's over here. Anyway, we got as far, I was in the seat for every takeoff and landing. We landed at Hickam, refueled, we went to Wake, refueled, we went to Guam to refuel, and we had another 9 hours, or 8 hours, I guess, from Guam to Benoit. Well, we're pretty beat. And like I said, the SAC had waived everything and wanted us there. So everybody kind of standing around. I'm the new guy in the block. I'm a guest on the crew because the regular co-pilot was in survival school in Washington, Spokane. Well, if you guys aren't going to call anybody, I will. So I picked up the phone, called 15th Air Force, and talked to the command post. And I said, well, it's Captain Achesen, and I'm with crew, whatever our number was. And we're here at Guam, and we're tired, and we're going to go to bed. The guy at the other end says, oh, okay. I said, you probably need to tell SAC that. Oh, we'll do it, you know, and call us when you're ready to leave. I thought, boy, he's not very eager to get us there. So anyhow, we got our nap in and left. We got it, but the timing was such, we got in about 4 o'clock on Saturday. So anyway, we're trying to fiddle around with it. They put us in a hooch that I think kept housed about 20 people. Now, normally the OL, the operating location, was consist of house trailers, connexes, and a butler building for the the commander and admin and that stuff. So I'm just trying to figure a way around. And of course, we had our line badges we had to show because we had guards on the entryway to get into our place. So it wasn't much there, and just a standard day with crew dogs that don't have anything to do. And so anyway, I got the second bunk. As you go in the door of the hooch, I had the second bed and locker. The first one was one of our navigators. And he's about 6'3" or 4", pretty big guy. This part gets to be a little humorous. She laughed about it anyway when I told her. So about 12:30, everything goes off. The alarms goes off. We got incoming and got explosions. Well, when I got into bed, the maids had made it very nice and tight, so I wasn't going to rip it up or anything. So I'm having a little trouble getting out of bed. So I finally get out, and I'm starting to get off into the hallway, and the nav gets up, and he's screaming that they're going to get killed and all this stuff. And I'm trying to get out and get going. Well, he's leaning on me, and I'm going running as fast as I can, get off balance. Well, being a nice guy that I am, we go about four bunks down, and one of the guys on the back end in the back end crew was trying to get out, but he hooked his leg around a wicker chair, and he drug it right across the aisleway to get out of here. And Teddy Bear was trying to get out of the way. I'm trying to help him get out of the way. Dean's leaning on me in the back, screaming in my ear. Next thing you know, the chair breaks. So Teddy Bear gets off. I'm flat on the floor. I'm starting to get up. It's like a cartoon. Next thing I know, I start to get up. There's a foot on my back. Down I go. I try to get up again. Another foot on my back, and down I go. And I'm sitting there beating a hole in the floor. Not a happy camper. And I'm sitting there, and of course we got incoming. I hear a voice over here. Hey, Danny, what's going on? Another one of the guys on the crew. He's sitting there playing with his little toe that he broke. So I get up there and I said, I don't know who that idiot navigator we got, but he's not going to be any good friend of mine. So we sit there for a little bit and finally, and we still got explosions going on. Finally, I said, Larry, I think maybe we ought to make our way out and find a room at the bunker back here. He says, it's a good idea. So we just kind of walked our way out. Of course, we got there and it was full up of bodies. and they weren't too happy about us trying to ease our way around. Anyway, I found a room next to this opening in the left in the wall. I assume it's for, let the explosion out or whatever when the thing hits the rocket hits the bunker here. So anyway, and I was like a tourist. I was watching those things go off, thinking, boy, this is really neat fireworks. Finally, I got tired of doing that, so I turned around and I was leaning over the other navigator. And next thing I know, I felt something. I figured just sand coming in. Didn't think anything about it. I tried to brush it off. Didn't seem to brush to it. So finally, after a little while, the all clear came in, and so we're walking back into the hooch, and somebody walked by. I said, "My God, you're bleeding like a stuck hog." I looked around. Sure enough, there's blood there. Well, I wonder what that is. So anyway, we got. I guess I got a fluid suit on and flat boots, and they take me over to the clinic where we get triage and that. And my wounds weren't all that bad. I mean, they cleaned them up and everything, and I signed a piece of paper. But I tell you what, some of these panic wounds they had, they were worse off than I was. So anyway, that was the story of my Purple Heart. And I think maybe, I don't know this for a fact, but I think maybe I am the only SAC recon crew member to get a Purple Heart in the Vietnam conflict. Well, you stop to think about it, we were on the ground in country. There was no other SAC unit, recon unit in country, except for our guys up at Da Nang, and I don't think they got it. So anyway, that's my one claim to fame until somebody comes up and says, no, you're wrong. So anyway, I spent from 1968 to February 72 going back and forth to Vietnam. We generally went 60 days at a time. So it was 60 days gone and then about 4 months worth home and back again. And so anyway, I was told I wasn't going to make major. And so I had an opportunity to go become a ground training officer at wing headquarters. So I did that, which upset the folks in the squadron because they had other people they wanted to get rid of, not me. So anyway, I did that for about a year or so, and then I got selected to go to staff college. So basically I wound up with about roughly 140 combat support and combat missions and about 1,000 hours of combat time out of the 50 some odd 5,600 time that I got on my logbook.
What was your most memorable instant happened in Vietnam that you just happy about?
Oh, happy?
Yeah, happy.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Now, well, the oddest one obviously is the tale of my Purple Heart. But, gosh, really.
The food?
Oh, well, we can talk about food. My navigator and we got into Chef Boyardee packages and we get pizza. So Gary and I we get ready to go. Well, we load up one of our bags and we have Chef Boyardee pizza. Well, they didn't last long because everybody else food was terrible. And we did have a field ration mess. I went there once, and in order to get in line, I had to take pills. I didn't want to do that. So, yellow fever, I think it was. Anyway, so Gary and I and then when we had an airplane coming over, they'd call the wives of us who were there, and they would bring boxes of goodies and put them on the airplane. So, and that's what Melba would do. She'd go to the commissary and buy Chef Boyardee pizzas. So Gary and I subsisted on that. Now, the Army next door to us at Long Binh, they brought in a Chinese restaurant out of Taiwan. Well, as long as we could get a set of wheels, we could go over there and have Chinese. That was really good. Well, we didn't eat there every time. A big deal at the Officers Club was a baked potato for dinner.
Okay, how about the worst time if you want to
Well,
remember?
it's a good question. I don't have nightmares about any of the worst times. Basically, from 68 was a lot of rocket attacks. 69 or early 69, we had some, but not as much or intense as it was in 68, particularly with Tet. And then in 70, they whoever they are at SAC headquarters decided to move us to Thailand, to Utapao, and there was of course the 307 bomb wing there, and we came part of we didn't become part of it. We were just there, and they had bombers and tankers there. So we flew our missions out of Benoit, and to be honest about it, I can't bring a bad time that bothers me, because it doesn't.
Okay,
And maybe
how about-
it might be kind of strange for me to say, but that way it worked.
How about flying over there or in theater? What amazed you about that area? It's the flying at night.
Well, we didn't have too many night missions. We were trying to develop a night capability, and we had a drone that we would send around, and it would drop flares, take pictures. But that didn't work out too well. That was in '69. I don't remember flying just too many missions with that one. Basically, the mission profile is, when we were in Vietnam, was it was about 14-hour total mission. We take off and we fly up to Da Nang. Now Da Nang is where we kept the recovery helicopters and the ground control people. And we go feet wet there, and then we go up the water somewhere below 800 feet to stay below radar. Not that they didn't know we weren't coming, but that's just what we thought. And we stay there, and we'd fly up through Task Force 77. That was kind of exciting. One time, I think it was my last tour, I was in the clouds about 800 feet, and there was an 87 launch coming right at me with bombs and everything. Well, he saw me and I saw him, and we missed each other. I'm pretty sure he wasn't too happy about it, because he just got launched off of a carrier. But then we go in and launch, and usually I saw a lot of Haiphong Harbor, because we launched about 20 miles off the harbor, from the harbor, and then we would monitor the drones' route of flight. Low altitude drones, we fly probably somewhere below 500 feet above the ground, and we'd have them programmed. The launch control officers would program it on what they call a motherboard. It's like the old-fashioned punch card, or not a punch card, but they would build a motherboard, and they put in, that was the brains of the drone. And then my hat's off to those guys, because we front end bunch, we get done with our mission plan and route of flight, try to make sure we had a good look-see with the radar we had to monitor the drone's position. And then, but early the next day, they used to have to show up 3 hours prior to takeoff, because they'd insert the motherboard into the drone, and then they'd have to step it through to make sure they programmed it correctly. So that was, and of course, nobody complained when I went to sleep on the way back home. So anyway, and then later we got into where they just typed it in. It was like a teletype ribbon, and they just feed it in there, and away it went. That was pretty good. A couple exciting things. I got to see a MiG shot down once. We'd launched, and we'd had a little tough time getting our little spy drones around the route, and not uncommon to, they get shot down or they run into something. And so anyway, we got real happy. Now we knew when they were getting shot at, so this one was taking kind of a beating. Anyway, all of a sudden we looked up there, about 55,000, because we had a transponder code on the drone that we could interrogate and monitor back into the airplane. And he was up about 55,000. We saw the contrails and everything. And well, yay for our team, we're going to get one back. About that time, up popped two more contrails, one at 4 o'clock and one at 8 o'clock. And they happened to be not our guys. So we estimated there were about 50,000. So we had Alcoa, which was our lifeguard destroyer down below. And so we got on secure radio, and we called them and said, "Hey boys, you see those two? Hey, I always see them. We need to take care of them." Well, just a minute. So we heard them go back to the Task Force 77 to the Admiral and asking permission to fire. Oh, well, that's kind of dumb. So anyway, sure enough, about the time they called back, Task Force 77 gives you they got about all he got out of it. a missile comes off the deck, and we could watch it go up there, and the next thing there's only 2 contrails. One of the bad guys left, and then the other one peeled away and went home. So that was kind of fun. Another time, and normally the drone would beat us back to Da Nang, and we seldom got to see the helicopter fly in and capture the drone in midair and that. But this one particular time, I don't know exactly why, but we got back about the time the drone got back. We turned control over to the ground guys. Ground guys were flying out around and getting it set up to punch chutes. Now there was 2 sets of chutes. One was a 100-foot recovery chute that the drone would come slowly, ass end of the drone down, and then attached to it was a 20-foot ring slotted chute. The helicopter would come in trailing flying hooks, treble hooks like fish hooks, and they would hit that ring slotted chute and snag it basically. And at the same time, as soon as they did that, they put the pressure on the static line that held the 100-foot chute, and a explosive bolt would explode and disconnect the 100-foot chute from the drone. Now the drone would go swinging around, and it was kind of exciting to watch that. But this time the helicopter came in, and he's got the ring slotted chute, but the explosive bolt didn't work. So now he's tied into this 20-foot ring slotted chute and the 100-foot recovery chute. Next thing you know, you see that helicopter headed nose down towards Da Nang Harbor. Well, fortunately, they had a winch operator really quick. He cut everything loose, and the helicopter loose from the ring slotted chute. It was funny, humorous I guess, to see all the little Vietnamese fishing boats heading out towards that drone as it came down in that parachute, because they wanted material to make whatever they sewed whatever up. So that was kind of interesting.
Okay, what was the rest of your career like quickly?
Well, I like I used to tell my crew dogs, I said, do not plan on following in my footsteps because you won't do anything. So anyway, after Tucson, went to spend a year in command staff, and thank you to my bride again. She arranged my evening. I hit the house at 6 o'clock. The TV news would be on. The girls would be seated at the breakfast table, and dinner would be laid out, paper over here. So from 6 to 6:30, I talked to her, talked to my girls, watched the news, read the newspaper, and then I went into my hidey hole to study for the next day, because I was going to Staff College for the Air Force, and I was going to graduate school Auburn for me to get my master's degree, and I couldn't have got it done without her support and stuff. There was a lot of guys like me. And then so finished up that. Now I had a date of return from overseas that they told me made me safe from going remote. As like any other personnel puke, they lie. So anyway, I wound up with a remote assignment to CCK. Oh, poop, I've already been there. I don't need to do that again. So anyway, I'm going through survival school down at Clark. Just finishing up, and they come in and give me a message form, and it says, by the way, your orders are canceled. Been that way before. Stay at Clark because we're coming to meet you. So they removed the headquarters of the 374th Tactical Airlift Wing and 2 squadrons to Clark. 3rd squadron they sent to Yokota and Okinawa. So for the next year, I was stationed in the Philippines. No, it wasn't too bad. For the first few months, I was chief pilot in the squadron, and I was also a part of a classified outfit called E-Flight, and basically we wound up working for Air America, and we had gray airplanes and did all kind of things with that. So I only got one mission in on that thing, and then I came walking down the hall. Squadron commander comes out. He looks to the right, nobody there. He looks to the left, and there I am. He says, "Hey, you" was one of his favorite. Hey, what are you doing? Well, sir, I'm going down here to get a cup of coffee. He says, well, I mean, I know that, but what are you doing this next week? I said, well, whatever you want me to do. He says, go to 13th Air Force. They need somebody to answer phones. I said, okay. So I go up there, and they're having a command post exercise. And 2 guys in C-130 airlift ops were tied up, and they wanted somebody to answer the phone. Well, I could do that pretty good. Been prior training. So I did that, and about halfway through the week, a colonel walks in. He was a division chief. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm answering phones." He says, "Well, here," he says, "we're going to have a fighter pilot conference at Baguio," which back in the old days was the summer capital of the Philippines. And he says, "Can you do that?" I said, "Well, I'll give it my shot." So I spent about 2 days, got rooms, got brochures put together, figured out what golf and all that stuff. Gave it to him, and that was the end of that. Well, they were kind of happy with that. Nobody yelled at me. So that was like April. So then one of the guys didn't have his college degree, so he wanted to take a chance, come back bootstrap. And they called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to come work here?" I said, "Yeah, I was getting tired of whatever it was I was doing down there in the squadron. Because I wasn't getting to fly as much as I wanted to, even though I was the chief pilot." So anyway, I wound up going to 13th Air Force for about 5 months. And that was kind of interesting. I set up, the wing had been there, well, as long as I had. But they didn't have a drop zone practice or drop zone, and they didn't have an assault landing area. Now, there was a radar station at Wallace Air Force Station, a Poro Point, it's up northern part of Luzon, that had a gravel runway, ideal for assault landings and stuff. Only problem is, he didn't have a proper fire truck. He had a water wagon, needed a foam wagon. So I went over to somebody, I think it was the fire guys, and I said, "Hey, I need a fire truck." And he said, "What kind?" I said, "I need a P4. "Oh, we got all kinds of, we're shipping them back out of Vietnam." I said, "Well, give me one here to." "Oh, okay, we can do that." I didn't realize I was stealing it. So anyway, they called me up and said, "Oh, by the way, your fire truck's been delivered." So I called the commander of at Wallace. I said, "Hey, did you get a present?" He said, "Oh yeah, thank you so much." He said, "It's the greatest thing since sliced bread." I said, "Okay, well, don't tell him where you got it." Next thing I know, I get a phone call from Fig Newton in Honolulu. Heck 'em. "Hey, do you know anything about a fire truck?" "Not me. I'm an airplane driver. I don't fight fires." So that got away. So I'm looking now I found out that the wing, without coordinating with anybody, was going to sign a lease for about a plot of ground that did not meet the requirements for a drop zone. It was too small. So I hurried up and put my headquarters hat on. I stopped that mess, but I had to go find a place. So I got to looking around. Well, here on Clark was a nice area. Nobody's using it. Right size, everything. So I went and talked to civil engineers. I said, "I want a drop zone there." I said, "Oh yeah, okay. Well, we'll do that." So it's a day before the first drop, and I'm talking with somebody. I said, "Oh, you know what's buried out there?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, it's this unexploded ordnance. The ammo dump burned up a few years back. They didn't have a place to put it, so they dumped it all out there." Okay, it all clicked in because we had a lot of Filipinos would sneak in looking for brass, and they'd do ashtrays and all that kind of stuff. Oh, holy smoke, now what's going to happen? So anyway, I went and told my boss, another major, and I told Lynn, I said, "Well, we're going to go down and watch and see what blows up." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "There's a bunch of exploded ordnance down there." So they came in and dropped 9 barrels of 55 barrels of water. Fortunately, nothing blew up, so that was kind of neat. So I 1 year there. Anyway, I found out that my following assignment to Tucson, 6 weeks before I'm supposed to rotate back to the States, I found out my assignment had been canceled. Nobody bothered to tell me. So I'm talking with SAC here, and they said, "Well," I said, "I don't want to come back there." He said, "Well, you're warm and breathing." I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He said, "Well, you got a choice." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "135s or B-52s." Well, B-52s were flying chrome dome 24 hours. I didn't really want to do that. I said, "Okay, FB-111 to peace." "Oh, you can't go there." "Why?" "You got to go to B-52s first." "Well, I don't go there." Well, we argued about that. He says, "Well, okay, I'll take a tanker." "Okay, where do you want to go?" I said, "I want to go to Fairchild, Spokane." "Oh, you can't go there." "Oh, why?" He says, "Well, you got to have a northern tour." "Well, wait a minute. you draw a line from Spokane to New York, to Griffiths. I said, that's all northern. Yeah, but not those bases. We're talking Minot, Grand Forks, all the to give me tankers. And my sister and her husband lived in southern part of, in East Lansing, Michigan. I said, well, I'll take one to Michigan. Well, but nice and close to my sister and brother-in-law. So I picked a base, found out it was the wrong base. I was thinking it was the one where Wordsmith is, which is not very far from Lansing. So I took Kinchlow. Well, we wound up at Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Long story short there, I was a crew dog for about 7 months. Took my crew to Achesen because they needed to get out of the country. They needed the experience, and that was kind of interesting. That little tour. And then I came back. I was on alert. Squadron commander called up and says, "What are you doing?" "I'm on alert there, Larry. Don't you know that?" He said, "Well, lunch Friday. Me and the DO, a fellow by the name of Harley Hughes, who later retired 3-star. Anyway, so they came over and I wondered what this was all about. Well, anyway, he said, well, would you like to become the tanker scheduler? Well, it's many a mouse, wild bear walk in the woods. You bet. That'll get me out of this alert stuff. So anyway, I became a tanker scheduler, and that was interesting stuff. The crews loved it because I was able to lay out a whole year of schedule for them. They knew when they could go on leave, they knew when they do family stuff, and it was just really a good deal. And in the meantime, I had called my old wing commander from Clark, a fellow by the name of Jim Baginski. He'd made brigadier, and he was at Scott Air Force Base MAC headquarters. So I called, his nickname was the Bagger. Everybody in airlift knew the Bagger. So I called him up and said, "Hey, Denny, get me out of here." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm flying tankers up here in Sault Ste. Marie, and it's cold." He said, "Oh, you know what? We could use you down here at the headquarters." I said, "How's that?" He said, "Well, you got airlift, and now you got tankers. We can put you in KC-10s. Well, I said, "I'd really like to go to 130s, but the KC-10 will do." So I said, "I'll work on it." Well, he had a reputation to be able to pull strings and do whatnot. So I'm sitting there, it's December, about a week or 10 days before Christmas. Friday, phone rings, clerk answers. "Major, it's Airman Brothers from personnel. Hot dog, here's my assignment to Scott." "Hi, Major Achesen." "Hey, Major, it's Airman Brothers. I got an assignment to go to Achesen, Alaska." I said, "Who put you up to this?" I slammed the phone down. Went back to do what I was doing. It wasn't 30 seconds later, phone rings again. Anyway, the clerk answers. He says, "Major, it's Airman Brothers." He says, "Please don't hang up." So, okay, fine and dandy. So anyway, I talked to him, sure. "Yeah, I'm going to Achesen." I said, "I'm supposed to be going to Scott." He said, "I don't know anything about that." So I'll go, how am I going to break this news to Bride and my girls? So they were up at Sault Ste. Marie at Lake Superior State College doing something. So I just told them, I'll see you guys Monday. I had to go tell her. And of course she wasn't happy about that. Well, it turns out to be one of the best family assignments. The girls enjoyed it. She enjoyed it. Had a good time. So I went up there as chief of the Alaska Tanker Task Force. And I had a line number to Lieutenant Colonel. I figured my career was over by this time. So anyway, I get up there in March of '77. Well, about a month or 6 weeks later, a new colonel shows up in the wing to be the chief of maintenance. Well, it turns out to be an old friend of mine from Tucson, John Dale. And thought that was kind of neat. Now I know somebody. So, and then the wing commander's wife unfortunately came up with cancer, so they had a humanitarian assignment out of there about 4 months later. So John now is the wing commander, and I'm still down in tanker ops, which is okay. It's like I had a mini squadron. I had 7 crews that were on temporary duty. They come in and we change out about every 5 days. And the main job we had was refueling the RC-135s out here at Offutt as they go their missions out there. And once in a while we refuel fighters and stuff. And then we also had responsibility for the 24th Strat Recon Squadron. flew East RC-135s out of Shemya, and their job was to monitor missile launches into Kamchatka. So anyway, it was kind of interesting. And then my boss, who was the DOT, after about he left, so I moved up into his job for about a number of months, and then the wing commander left and the DO became the wing commander, so the ADO moved over to the DO, pulled me up to be the assistant deputy for operations. So that's what it was. Well, January came along, January 1980, and I'm not hearing any good word about assignment. I'm a lieutenant colonel by now, and I'm trying to think, okay, what am I going to do when I retire here? And anyway, John would call every once in a while to see what's going on. So it was January. He says, "What are you going to do, Denny?" I said, "Well, right now they're just promising at best a DOT job in a bomb wing." I said, "I need a tanker squadron if I'm going to make colonel." He said, "You want to come work for me?" I said, "John, that's a stupid question." "You bet." I said, "I've only known you since 1967. And he said, "Okay." So he worked a deal, and I got the job I had. Historically, every chief would make colonel. Well, that sounded good. Well, I get down here, and sure enough, I finally get, let me stop and think, 80, that was 80. And 81, I came out on the colonel's list, and then pinned on in 82, May of 82. And they sent me out to Travis as the DO of the 307th Air Refueling Wing, or Squadron. I'll get it right in a minute, Air Refueling Group. And so we were out there in Napa Valley, and the only problem was we had me as one colonel, my boss was a colonel, and the DCM was a colonel. One of us, and the DCM didn't count, one of us, my boss or me, had to be on base all the time for the alert force. Well, Mark's my boss, he and I had been classmates at Staff College, so we'd known each other there. Anyway, they had a daughter who was married to a missileer at Mather, so it was not uncommon for them to take off every weekend to go up there and visit their grandkids. So guess what Denny got to do? I got to babysit the workforce every weekend. So I talked to Mark and declared the golf course on base, even though it was about 3 miles off base. So at least I got to play a little golf. So anyway, come July of 1980, the 6th Act came out in January of 83 to inform us that we were going to be deactivated 1 October. Well, I can imagine what a workload that is, trying to figure out how we're going to do all this. So we were coming along pretty good and doing okay. And then Mark, my boss, called me, said, "You want to taxi up to my office?" I was always taxiing somewhere for him. He said, "Come up to my office, I want to talk to you." "Oh, I wonder what that's about." So I got up there and he had a flimsy in his hand and, "Congratulations, Carl." I said, "What for?" He says, "You're going to be the new commander of 307th. I said, "When does this happen?" "Next week." I said, "Where are you going?" So I'm going to Achesen. So here I am, I inherit the unit that's going to be deactivated. They very cleverly arranged it so I only had a tenure of 89 days. That way I didn't get an OER. I'm not sure if that was protection or they just didn't know what, they didn't trust me. So anyway, that worked very hard. Very proud of how we wound up. And the crew dogs, every aircraft commander that qualified got to be upgraded to instructor. Every co-pilot was qualified to be an aircraft commander, got upgraded to aircraft commander. Same thing, navigators qualified, they were all instructors. I didn't have any boom operators qualified to move up. All my enlisted folks who were qualified got their next level, skill level. Company grade officers who were eligible for squadron officer school either got to go there right now or got to go to squadron officers school en route. I did that for a purpose, and the reason being is I didn't want them to go out, the young people to go out to a new unit and go all the way to the bottom of the ladder. Same thing for my young enlisted people. They were qualified, they were good at it. Well, by golly, they didn't need to go do that. So I'm very proud of how that worked. The only black mark was I was really concerned about, I looked at the calendar, I had 6 weeks, so I had about 300 some odd people that really didn't have a whole lot to do. So my senior enlisted advisor and I talked about it, and Norm was getting ready to retire, so he kind of left all these good ideas out the door. I said, "Norm, get all the senior NCOs up and we're going to have a meeting." So we did. We were in the conference room, and I walk in, all my masters, chiefs, and seniors. And I got up there to the front and I said, gentlemen, we have a problem. And of course one of the chiefs said, what's that, Colonel? I said, we got all these people and nothing for them to do. I said, now for those who don't know, in 1979, the Travis race riot started by a boom operator in this unit. And we ain't gonna do that. I said, okay. Well, I said, if I would kick around, I said, give them extra 73-day passes, give them anybody you can afford to let go leave and once it. Just keep them busy. Well, shoot, oh dear. We had 8 o'clock roll calls. We did marching. We did drills. We did picnics. I mean, those guys, I had to take my hat off to them. I just turned it loose and they did a wonderful job. The only bad incident I had was my dorm manager. We officially deactivated on the 1st of October. The following week, he's coming on base with a marijuana cigarette in the ashtray. Well, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. So anyway, that was there. Okay, so my next assignment was to the 19th Bomb Wing, Warner Robins, Georgia, as vice commander. And of course, the thing was, by the time I got there were no bombers because now we're the 19th Air Refueling Wing. So that was towards the end of October. Well, the commander and I sit there and cogitate a little bit. Said, we're probably due for major inspections. Well, as the vice commander, my job was in exercise. So for the next 3 months, I exercised a lot. And sure enough, we had First Combat Evaluation Group come in and check the crews. I think we're outstanding. MSET came in to check our maintenance. They were above satisfactory. In fact, we were over an OMS with the wing commander. And we're talking to the squadron commander, and I said, okay, well, how about your hidey holes? Oh, we don't have hidey holes. I said, I was born at night, but not last night. I said, I just closed up a tanker unit, and I couldn't believe how many hidey holes those guys had down in maintenance. And I said, what's up in there? I said, oh, nothing. And he said, besides that, they got to get up on this counter to, well, one of the senior sergeants did just that. He almost got beamed by all the crap that came out of the ceiling. So anyway, well, the squadron commander still wound up making colonel, but all right, we had a little I told you so. And then the ORI came, and we did really good on that. So I had a pretty good, felt pretty good about that. And then, so we're sitting there, and SAC would put out what I call a monthly how goes it. In other words, they list every SAC base and every SAC unit and who all the senior officers and senior NCOs in it and what they're doing and all that stuff. And you kind of track. And of course you see who got moved out. And I'm looking at this thing about a year after I'd been there. And I said, I'm the oldest vice commander in command. I wonder if they're going to move me. Well, the only 2 places I could see was either Mildenhall in England or Altus, Oklahoma. So I came and I had lunch to make a casual comment with Bride there. And he said, well, if you go to Mildenhall, I'd go with you. Well, her mother was not well. And I could understand that. So I'm sitting there, okay, now what do I do if that comes about? So I'm sitting there and go back to work, and a few days later, Chief of 8th Air Force Personnel guy you used to know here at the headquarters when he was Chief of Protocol, he and I made Colonel on the same list. He called me up and said, have you had a phone call yet? I don't remember his name, but I said, this sounds like a conversation we had about a year ago. When you called me and I was in California, you want to know if I got a phone call yet. And I told him I would give you the same answer, no. And he said, oh, poo. And so he hung up. I don't wonder what this is all about. So next thing I know, General Autry called from 8th Air Force. Said, hey, Danny, he says, how you feel about being a wing commander? I said, well, is Wild Bear walking the woods? I said, sure. He said, well, we're going to send you to Altus. I said, okay. I didn't know where Altus was, but I could find a map. And so I went and told Mama we were leaving in January and going to Altus, Oklahoma. So we went out there for 2.5 years, and I pretty much enjoyed that. We were selected for 2 years in a row as the best tanker wing in 8th Air Force Rauscher Trophy. We got most improved in bomb comp in '86 and did well in all inspections. And I'm sitting there thinking, either going to promote me or move me. Well, obviously, the sink sack Jack Chain told us at bomb comp, nobody from the 61 or 62 year group is going to be eligible for general. We're just passed over. He just decided. Because he did not enough young sack colonels were making general. Okay. Of course, unfortunately, some of the ones he picked fell on their nose, but that's okay. So what am I going to do? Well, I wound up here as deputy commander, deputy director for command and control. So I'd go to work at 6 because my boss was a brigadier. So we had to brief him, get him pumped up, ready for the SAC DO meeting at 7. So we get him all pumped up for the 8 o'clock sink sack meeting at 8. So, we live out in Papillion, so we go into work in the dark, come home in the dark. Or in the summertime, go home with the sun in my eyes, go home with the sun in my eyes. This lasted about 18 months. There's got to be something better than this. So I had 2 girls in college. Sweet thing was working here at Bellevue University in the student services, career counselor and academic advisor. Having a great time. She loved doing that. And I retired. One of my daughters graduated of Bellevue. The other daughters graduated of Drury College, now Drury University in Springfield, Missouri. So as they say, that was kind of the end of my Air Force career.
Well, thank you. Got one last question. Looking over the past career, and your grandkids come up and watch this video, what would you like to tell them?
Well, it'll be interesting what my great grandkids turn out to be. My son-in-law is a retired wing commander in the Royal Australian Air Force. He was a fighter pilot and a 130 pilot. That's one of the things I really like about him. And his wife, our daughter, was a major in the Air Force Reserve, and she's got time in Kuwait, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and in the first Gulf War. So there's a little bit of a history, military history, that'll tag on to my grandkids, but that service in the defense of your country is a great thing to do. You're not going to get rich. You're going to get a lot of opportunities to meet people, good and bad. And that's one of the things both of us, will take to our graves, is all the neat people that we got a chance to meet and work with. She didn't wear a uniform, but she was busy with Red Cross, family service centers, and that. And one of the things I'm very proud of while I was at Altus is that she rounded the wives up and generated a cookie bus. So when we would have major exercises, the ladies would get together, make sandwiches, bake cookies. I forgot what you had, iced tea and coffee somewhere. And they'd go around and feed folks. And they really, the young people really liked that. We even fed the cops. I didn't own the cops. They belonged to my host wing, but even they were very impressed and grateful for that. So that was kind of neat. But now, did I ever intend being a serving member for so long? No, I really didn't. I wanted to fly airplanes. And that was part of the deal. And I got to do that. Is there anything I'd change? Maybe. I got to be good friends with the DO of 13th Air Force when I was at the Philippines. He liked me because I helped him win golf tournaments. So anyway, Colonel, when I found out my assignment canceled, I went and talked to Colonel Harris. And I said, I'm going to dump on you. You don't have to tell me anything. But here's the deal. So I went through all that. And he said, Denny, I would love to keep you here. He says, but we're going to go away. 13th Air Force is going to be deactivated. He says, I don't see where you would wind up benefiting by bringing your family over here for an extended period of time. So I had that option. And looking back, I think he would have liked, my wife would have liked that. And the kids would have had a good, another good experience with that. And what would have happened out of that, I don't know. I think the only reason I got promoted to, or selected, was Lieutenant Colonel. I had a 3-star general endorsement on the ticket on top, or next on ticket on top. So I thank General Manor for that. But I have to thank Colonel Harris for setting that up. But I'm very proud that I was able to do a little bit to defend the frontiers of freedom, as we called it. And I hope that my grandkids will take some, or my great-great-grandkids will take that as some value. Now, whether they want to put the uniform on, I'm not really concerned about that. But just know that Grandpa was out there, and Grandma too, and a lot of sacrifices went in. I think about the Christmases that I've missed. There for a while, I missed every wedding anniversary and our oldest daughter's birthdays. Where was I? Well, I was over there. And think about it, but not much I could do about it.
Well, thank you, Danny, for your service.
You're welcome, Tom.
Appreciate it. And thank you for your service.
Oh, you're very welcome.